Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And obviously, good luck today, IgNar. It's a tough one for both of these teams today. I'll be honest. You know, this is not where either of them wanted to be. There are so many games where I'm sure they would have loved to say in week 1 or week 2, hey, this is the game that kind of defines our season. Now in week 3, and this is the game that defines your season. You are in the muck. You are in the shit. And if you do not climb out immediately, if you do not win here, it feels like it's just over.
Yeah, and it's not even like it gets easier as the weekend goes on as well. You kind of have to win this and then catch the other teams that already have 2 wins as well. So it does get very, very difficult for both these squads. But it starts with a win here today. And I am curious to see exactly what kind of form both these teams come out with, because it feels like at least the mid game is kind of where both these teams unanimously struggle. And I think that's where I'll be keeping my eyes on as we go into this.
For me as well, I think draft is also going to tell us a lot because both these teams have had, I think, bolder styles maybe than their record would indicate. I think Rogue have been very focused on drafting winning lanes and kind of playing through picks that require you to snowball leads very effectively. And for GX, similar story. They played things like the Ash Forest. They tried it out, and they leveraged it well in the early game, but so many little inconsistencies, little individual missteps made these compositions that were harder to execute and were well executed early fall apart in that mid to late game.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just like how you get different members of the team to interact with each other, right? Like, it feels like Peach is kind of getting caught out on his own quite a bit, not syncing up with IgNar to get vision in the mid to late portion of the game, right? And then, as you say, for looking across at Rogue as well, it kind of feels like a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes it's people getting caught out. More often than not, though, it feels more like we get to an objective fight and they just aren't willing to pull the trigger when they should. And then it's that inconsistently and that lack of threat that lets their opponent get a lot of footing in those situations and then come out on top.
Yeah, and those are the kind of errors that, you know, against 2 teams who have had, I think, similarly shaky mid games. I'm curious who's going to be able to find consistency here, or if it's going to be a battle of, you know, it's a lot of mistakes. It's a bit of a barroom brawl, maybe, instead of a clean game of chess. But I do want to see kind of an uptick, and I would love to see simplification on both sides in terms of the strategy that they bring to the table today. Of course, you've only got a very tight practice week. It's only 3 days, you know. Heard from Zuffer, it's only essentially 18 games for most teams. So 18 games to redefine how you want to play is a tall task. We'll see if teams fall back on what they know, what is comfortable, or if they try something new for now. Lots of AD carry bans, no surprise, they sent in Smolder, the 2 scaling, as well as the 2 early game AD carries or lane dominant AD carries in the Kalista and Varus, Poppy, and Orianna, the last 2 bans.
Vi going to be picked up here. Vi is an incredibly strong pick that we oftentimes see banned away, so it kind of gets forgotten about the strength of it, but it just sets you up so well in team fights. Also makes it difficult for things like Zeri, which I imagine will be relatively high priority with the amount of bans that are here, but also then sets you up very well for, I can go for a more aggressive mid lane pick as well, where I can actually play to sync up with this Vi, punish any sort of mid lane pick like the Ahri, and see if we can win out that way. Taliyah, one that works very well there because it's the point and click CC into nice little flick back.
Yeah, and I like having that combination especially. We saw G2, of course, punish previously when they went for the Lee Sin Taliyah, which has a bit of a higher barrier to execution. It was a little bit more exploitable, but the absolutely 100% guaranteed CC that Vi brings is always good to have. GIANTX, though, known for drafting, I would say, more volatile bot lane matchups. A lot of times, champions who are very good at one thing or 2 things, something like the Ash Bar is very good at getting pressure, but maybe fall apart mid to late. Would like to see the Rakan, maybe a trip back to simpler times, to simpler lane matchups.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe actually take the AD carry side of it here and go for the Xayah instead, because I definitely feel like as this game starts to go on, or sorry, as this draft starts to go on, you're going to get more and more of those AD carries banned, right? So you ban away Xayah here. Maybe you're worried about something else here in the AD carry role, like a Kog'Maw or some other, or Aphelios maybe actually would be more likely. So ban Xayah, ban Aphelios, and then you're like, well, what the hell are we trying to play in that bot lane role? And especially with the Rakan, having something like maybe the Jinx come back could be an option, but the Jarvan now coming through, it gives you that definitive engage tool alongside the threat with the Ahri. It feels like a lot of these hyperscalers that lack mobility are going to struggle with what Rogue are drafting here.
Yeah, and Rogue an opportunity to ban away maybe any of the more mobile options that are waiting in the bottom lane. You already have Taliyah, who's going to be very vulnerable to that Cataclysm. Obviously, Rakan going to be able to get out, Vi going to be able to get out, so not the biggest threat to either of them, but if you can hit both of the more vulnerable carry roles, that'll be fantastic to have. So Kai'Sa will hit the bench, and well highlighted, Rob. Clearly, that's what Rogue's focus area is. So, like, you were going to play something immobile, we are going to Jarvan you, and we're going to pray to God that our Zeri and Ahri can do enough damage to kill you. And of course, Rogue fans here today. Rogue need that support, as do GIANTX, right? A tough spot to be in, as we already highlighted. But the Kai'Sa banned, the Renata now banned. Of course, split ban or split choices in the first pick phase, so some room to exploit maybe smaller champion pools.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the Xayah ban come through here, and then Lulu on the opposite side. Lulu Zeri is a menace, and Lulu's also very, very good into the Rakan as well, because you can whimsy him as he goes in for the grand entrance. So more than likely going to see that, but the Rumble ban instead. I'm kind of surprised, because like Xayah is perfect here. You end up with a lot of yes, you'll have to flash out the Cataclysm, but even just the fact you have that self-peel with the ultimate means it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the follow-up on Rogue to really nail you down. But I think here, Lulu should be the ban for GIANTX. If not, I think that's just such a solid pickup for Zoelys in the bot lane.
I do get concerned when you say the word Zoelys and Rumble, though, because this is a guy who likes to play aggressive, who likes to sometimes even overforce plays. He's been caught out repeatedly a lot in a lot of the previous games for Rogue, especially last week. So putting him on a squishier champion, similar to how I feel when Hilly gets put on a squishier champion, I get nervous. It's not that it can't be done well. It's just that it's not necessarily the first pairing that comes to mind, even if it makes sense in context of the draft. The Aatrox will be the last ban, so a bit of top lane focus on both sides. Rogue will have the luxury of the Finn counter pick, and now we get to see the faded Finn versus Odoamne matchup. Because of how poorly these teams have been doing, it has not been the center of our attention, but it's still a banger. They don't hate each other, but we will pretend that they do for the cage match, the grudge match on the top side of the map.
This would be a spice one, but yeah, I think it's just going to be trying to select one of the blind picks here for the top lane. So you could go for Gnar, could go Renekton, Gragas, also one that Odoamne could go for. So yeah, it's just going to be the Gragas, and you're playing more for the peel here for what I imagine is going to be the Xayah, where you go in with the Jarvan ult, cask out, try and provide some safety for that backline. Because I do think you need something that has that self-peel at least to a certain degree with what Rogue have drafted, but we'll have to see exactly what they want to go for. And then the upside, I'm kind of curious to see what Finn wants to go for here. Like, has often opted back in towards things like, you know, the Udyr.
Okay. So, Patrik and IgNar play a normal bot lane challenge. Impossible. They cannot help themselves. It has to be a little bit weird every time. We're big fans of Nilah. Rob, we've spammed lots of various Nilah combos over our mini games together. That said, notably a melee champion who usually does better against melee supports, I'll be honest. The double range matchup doesn't feel super great for a Nilah player.
And even when you go into team fights, then it's like, who are you trying to really lock up there, right? Zeri, ton of mobility, and the Jarvan is going to lock you up in place. Like, even the Ornn is just going to clap you back to tell you to sit down. So I don't really feel like this was maybe the position for Nilah. And you're only opening up opportunities for, like, with the push on bot side, because you've got the double range matchup to maybe even look for some sort of invades, get into the face of Peach, control bot side river. And that's honestly where GIANTX have started to struggle when you look at a lot of the early games, is when they lose control of bot side river, they end up, you know, IgNar overextending, Peach overextending, and getting caught.
That said, Nilah brings a lot of unique things to the table. We'll see how they leverage, you know, obviously her melee range, or effective melee range, even if she lands a Q, is something to be considered. But there's more to the champ. We'll talk about it as we get in the game. Finn obviously opting for the Ornn. I like this. Your choices are kind of, you can pick a more aggressive laning matchup and kind of try to outmatch in terms of laning power. Instead, he opted for the Ornn and said, hey, look, you also have some scaling team fight threat. I'm going to outmatch you there. Screw the lane. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I think it just works very well with what you want to do to counteract what is essentially a heavy dive composition coming through for GIANTX. Yes, you got Jackies who can kind of play at the back line, but everyone else is jumping in to your face. So Ornn's like, great. Easy setup for maybe like a stun off my E, the knock up on my ult. It's going to be perfect. So we're going to have to see how this one pans out.
And on to the Rift we go. Thumbs up already coming out from Jackie's players. Feeling good. So I talk for an extra 30 seconds so Rob can bring my coffee from the door. Thank you, Rob.
Don't let them peek behind the curtain.
I know. I need to let them know. The audience deserves to know the production magic. And now the laning matchups are going to be interesting. So historically, obviously, Nilah Senna was the big pairing that we saw in pro play. You might see her paired with some other options. But generally, the thing to note about this champion early on is that she gives extra XP. So as long as she's getting the last hits, she shares 50% of the XP that's lost from putting two players in a lane. So really all that means is you're going to get level 2 faster, you're going to get level 3 faster, you're going to get level 6 faster. Those are the important breakpoints for us to keep an eye on.
But that's the thing, right? And I think when I look back at last year, I think Nilah had this really cool niche where I was like, oh wait, 8 minutes is when Rift Herald spawns. I can actually get my support to level 6. We then have ult advantage, and we can play for Rift Herald with having more ultimates available than the enemy does. But because of the change where we're going, oh, well, Void Grubs kind of come in about 5-6 minutes when we actually want to like look at when we're taking them. And then we come in later, those like key breakpoints don't really line up with the way objectives spawn anymore. So I'd be curious to see kind of how IgNar and Patrik move around the map here, or if they do it all, and it just becomes a case of, hey, we want to try and play heavily for the 2v2, but even that feels tough, right? You've got good poke coming through from Zoelys and comp, which is why Senna was often paired with Nilah to just try and keep her health bar up. And as well, if you try to go for the engage, well, if Zoelys is quick on the W, you just counter IgNar because he gets turned into a little Poro or whatever the hell the skin does, and you can't really play anything.
Poro, cupcake, doesn't matter. And I mean, the same is true as Nilah, right? Nilah is essentially, she's an all-in champion. Yes, she builds AD carry items, but essentially just because her kit has such ludicrous scaling with them, of course, getting effectively lifesteal or omnivamp against champions as well as armor penetration. So when she has 2-3 items, Finn being a tank isn't going to matter. But again, I don't think that that outweighs the fact that she has to walk into melee range of so many of these champions because she can dodge autos, and that is most of the damage the Rogue are going to do in terms of, you know, upfront burst past Larssen's combo. But her 25% magic damage reduction on her E,
it's very easy. All she has to do is counteract the point and click from Zoelys, the charm from Larssen, the knock up from Markoon, and then the W into the clap from Finn, and then after that, then the ult from Finn, and then also as he puts down the pillar and then rams into you. That's all you have to dodge here. And then, so it's not that much.
Okay. So just like 1 to 2 abilities from every single champion on the Rift are a problem for Nilah. All right. So what we're trying to say from a narrative standpoint is the odds are stacked against him. But
cue the 90s voiceover
for the action movie.
Patrik is the mighty duck.
Flying V. We need the flying V, GIANTX, please. But, you know, I respect it even in a game that feels it's not an elimination game, of course, officially, but it kind of feels like one, given where these teams are in the standings, and essentially that their biggest competition right now is each other, one step at a time. Crucial that you can get that win, and so good to see the confidence. IgNar, of course, getting level 3 ahead of schedule, allowing Peach to roam up. Maybe they can get something done here, have an XP advantage, so at least not very useful in the skirmish, but because Markoon is first to the crab, doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, everyone's just going to back away. I think both sides are going to try and move up towards this top end to contest for the other scuttle as well, but we're pushing mid here for GIANTX. You can see the Jarvan already going to reset. Markoon realizes he's not going to be able to get that, so I'm curious to see how he wants to try and approach this, though, because I think getting pressure on this bot side is definitely going to be your best port of call here to try and get in, you know, disrupt Patrik and IgNar from the get-go. And this, since you are the setup here for comp and Zoelys, I think you'll be in a great spot to try and punish, particularly like Patrik and that in these early stages. But we'll have to see, as Zoelys not quite quick enough on the W there, as Patrik went for the all in.
Not for Zoelys. Of course, Nilah also boosts healing and shielding, so another reason why the Senna pairing makes a lot of sense. The Rakan also does bring a decent amount to the table in terms of both healing and shielding with the Gleam as well as the Battle Dance. So not quite easy yet for Comp and Zoelys to really bully out now that the wave is pushing into them. But you can see Comp kind of knows. It's a little bit about the scalings arm race. Goes for an early cold, bit of extra sustain in the lane. Happy to just, you know, trade blows, trade waves here for now. Expect it to change, especially as we get closer to 6, but I think there is a certain amount of pressure on GX to kind of leverage the early XP advantage that Nilah gives, maybe the early pressure advantage that Taliyah gives as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult to try and find that, because yes, you got push in mid, which can help out, but you're never really going to have good control over the spot lane being into double range. So it's not like you can go in and invade with Peach to find Markoon, unless Markoon overextends in River or something. So you're more fishing for these mistakes where Jackies can try and come in. But even when you look at like, hey, we want Jackies to try and set up for dives with like a Taliyah ult or something, it's like, bot lane isn't really an option because they just push you off the turret or can freeze, as you can see here. But yeah, I think that as long as you play this where you just kind of keep the wave just out of harm's reach for Comp and Zoelys, you're going to be fine to just scale it to later portion of the game. But I agree with you. I think like the pressure is on GIANTX to try and break that somehow.
Absolutely. And when we look at like comp scaling is always an interesting discussion because it's often very much about setup. But when you look at the theoretical front to back, you know, Napoleonic warfare, let's line up and take shots at each other kind of team fight, right? Rogue are very favored. Their comp is simple. It does a lot of things really well. Comp dashing out. Markoon also just going to flag and drag a safety here. Is GX are getting a bit of pressure down on the bottom side. Good to see Peach and IgNar link up to lay down some vision. But yeah, I think that's why we feel the pressure as well. It's just harder to play GIANTX's comp as we get later into the game.
Yeah, at least they will be able to use the presence that they had in mid to get control bot to go for Dragon. So you are still getting something. I'm curious to see exactly what Markoon's game plan is here. If he wants to try and just rotate straight up towards the Void groups, but doesn't look like mid or top are really in a position that he can threaten that. So just going to go for the reset instead. But this could potentially actually set up for another play on bot side if they spot that Markoon isn't here. Yeah, it looks like actually bot lane just Comp and Zoelys going to reset because they know it as well.
Well, last wave going to crash in. Compsy willing to lose a little bit of resources here to stick around. Good first Drake from the side of GX. No significant gold lead on either side, but Drake stacking is certainly one of the ways that GX can pull this rogue lineup into a fight. Patrik ticking over to level 6, crucial there. Not the most upfront burst damage from a Nilah ultimate early on, but obviously a fantastic playmaking tool.
I feel like I should just say nuclear cast anytime a Nilah.
Bro, I'm sorry. I do this every time there's a pick that I've played a bunch of. You can hear it. It's like, oh, Aphelios, get out of the way! You know, it's like Betty with the Nocturne back in the day.
Is he lethality? Is he lethality?
You can't see it, but every time Aphelios gets picked, there's a security guard outside whose sole job is tackle Drakos if he runs at the caster desk like a maniac.
He failed twice.
He's failed so many times. He doesn't have it in him. He also likes Aphelios. Again, secret behind-the-scenes production knowledge is Patrik goes forward. Is he going to use the ult, the Apotheosis for the pullback? Won't opt to do so instead. Double dash. Gets one. Gets out to safety. But so far, you know, not a bad early landing phase. I kind of expected the Nilah Rakan to get punished a bit more.
Well, I was going to say, like, Zoelys just hasn't really been on point with the whimsies. Essentially, the way you want to try and play this matchup is you poke, you trade, you use the shields on Zoelys, especially in the range advantage that you have to make things uncomfortable for Patrik and IgNar. And then anytime IgNar tries to go in, you immediately polymorph him. And it means that then he can't really dash back out. It interrupts the knock-up as well. So he ends up just existing, I should say, in the middle of you. And you're like, oh, yeah, cool, we're going to get a ton of damage down. But Zoelys just hasn't really been on point with the W timing. So IgNar has actually been able to punish relatively well. And now that you've got like level 6 open for IgNar, the threat in bot side river for like a Peach, Patrik, IgNar combo at this moment where you just got that little bit more XP is on an all-time.
Nice knockback from Jackie. Sadly, not going to take Larssen under the tower. Level 7 there for Peach, level 8 for Jackie, 6 for IgNar. Of course, you highlighted all these potential playmaking avenues if Peach and IgNar are able to link up. Patrik stepping back for now. First items comp, obviously, we just expect for early bit of Lightning and the Static Shiv, as well as Collector for Nilah is the standard. But those first item spikes for Nilah are pretty devastating if she gets ahead of the clock.
Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting to see the, like, variety in, I was going to say Zoe.
Yeah.
Might have to hold on here.
Peach is here. Good vision on the bottom side, but that ward is crucial. Jarvan knows that the try is safe. Now we'll see Peach first, and even if they want to go for a play, it's just a full 3v3. They have level advantage, but don't want to get too risky. IgNar waiting, was hoping to just hide in the shadows maybe a bit there. Is going to make sure at least that his vision is protected, not going to allow Markoon in to clear it out for free.
Yeah, but that's the nice thing here. Like when you look at the amount of vision that has actually been like set up here on this bottom side, like it makes it very difficult for Peach to try and get in. But also then the timing windows for for GIANTX haven't been great. Like they need push mid, but Larssen
knockback interrupted by the unstoppable Finn whiffing. No, oh! They get the flash. They get the flash. It was a good gank. That's all they could have hoped for.
Look, it was. I can understand Finn trying to like hit that timing. So essentially knew that the cast was going to come out from Odoamne. And that's kind of the biggest problem with this matchup is that Odo can always ult you as your ultimate to hit, so you can't get the second cast of the Ornn ultimate. But if you proc your W, you can interrupt that part of it and then try and get it after. But Finn just barely messing up the timing there. So nice try, but it's always going to be a difficult one to try and land in this matchup.
And I think regardless, the most they were likely to get there, given how full Odoamne's health bar was, is just a flash burn. So not the end of the world. Still good to have that pressure. Good use of the roam timing from Larssen. He is able to recall TP back to lane. Jackie's had already used his TP back to lane and doesn't really get a solid advantage over Larssen except for maybe 1 or 2 creeps dying in the process of that push. So overall, pretty free play from Rogue and good use of pressure from Larssen.
Patrik again are around this mid lane though. You can see Larssen was a little bit suspect there as he starts to back away. But yeah, I think this is where, like, if you can find these low windows from Larssen, it's going to be fantastic. I think trying to get it down onto the bottom end of things would be more in your favor. But I mean, you can already see like Rogue are more kind of like, hey, we can just wait for Zeri to scale, right? We can play for these late game fights. We get Ornn items and everything else is going to come through. For GIANTX, they're kind of bashing their head against the wall in a lot of situations to see where they can get access to. Like, they're trying to get control mid to then lean bot, but, you know, bot wave isn't right in the position that they wanted to because Comp and Zoelys are able to push back, so it kind of just ends up a little bit funky for GIANTX, and I think as this game goes on, it's just going to become more and more Rogue favored as they get more and more of those items.
Yeah. And good, just really good vision control around the bottom side from Rogue again. You highlighted it earlier, but the diligence they've had in vision there. Comp walking into try without vision in so many situations could have been a death sentence, but because they know exactly where Peach is, he can make those bold moves to get back into lane on time, despite the fact that, you know, GIANTX have pushed their vision line up a little bit further.
Yeah, all they want to do, as you say, is like keep track of Peach. Their next dragon is up, so I imagine like with the bounce back that Patrik IgNar have in this bot lane, like the wave just crashed, they should be able to try and move across. You can even see pushing mid, but Peach a little bit off timer here, but won't be there just on time as both waves crash. So there is actually a moment here where Rogue, as the waves start to bounce back out, could try and contest, but they're just going to go straight for Void Grubs. Markoon isn't even bothered.
Yeah, bot lane reset. Clear window of opportunity now for GX to just take the Drake. Maybe hoping to catch someone in the transition to the play. IgNar sadly not going to sweep that single. That single ward has gotten so much value. It has seen so much. IgNar clears out at least the tri-brush ward. You know, not perfect information from Rogue, but they know this is happening, so Markoon feels empowered to start up the grubs. Never mind, he wants his red buff. Respectable, play for yourself, junglers. That's the lesson of the day.
Is it? I was going to say, at this stage, you definitely should be cross-mapping a little bit more for this.
I mean, he's already behind in camps. Enemy Vi has Sundered Sky. I get it if you want to play for yourself.
Yeah, I think there should be a bit more of a trade-off here, because the biggest problem that you're going to see now is that, like, okay, we've got full control bot lane here as GIANTX, and now Zoelys is going to face check.
Breaker. Zoelys. Speed up out of safety, not opting for the Whimsy here. Obviously, Peach can just in-response ult. That is technically a projectile. There is a bit of time to respond.
GIANTX going to get pushed out as bot side jungle as both Markoon and Larssen are starting to pinch them. But, yeah, I think the trade-off for the Void Grubs is giving you some sort of opportunity to try and play for, hey, if we actually get push on bot lane, we can look to take a bit of turrets, or we can look to try and chip down some objectives. But I think at the moment, you're kind of in this position where you haven't really crossed map as Rogue. You're going to hit GIANTX with this third dragon coming through, which is Mountain Soul as well, in the next couple of minutes. Right as you're starting to hit like an item and a half to 2 items for the Nilah, which is where she's happy. You're going to have Sundered Sky for the Vi. She's still going to be very relevant before she has to go into a more tanky build. So I think you are kind of hitting this moment as GIANTX where you haven't really been threatened, and there is going to be a window of opportunity hitting mid-game that you can look for big team fights. But it's just a case of if Rogue are able to disrupt that.
It's a good question. Odoamne on vision. Lane swaps coming through. Taliyah now coming to the top side. Jackie's can roam mid if he needs to. IgNar and Patrik there and ready for some setups. Again, the playmaking composition of these two particular picks, the Nilah and the Rakan, solid on their own. Pair it with the Vi, you can get a lot done, but Rogue haven't really been contesting GX in a lot of what they're doing, and I think as a result, GIANTX are kind of content to just keep getting Drakes and just to take this Herald. That said, Rogue, are they here to fight or are they here to cheerlead? Is it a Porter Robinson situation? Or are they fully going to commit? Peach going in. Nope, it's a spectator. They're just there to cheerlead. Let's go, GX. Nice. Take the Herald. And moments of indecisiveness like that cost you. In this case, not in a big way. It is just Larssen's TP as he is forced to use it down to the bottom lane. But sending 5 members to watch someone else take an objective does not feel good.
Yeah, and this is where, again, like, if you had Void Grubs and you were like, hey, we actually got a couple of these, we can, you know, pick off bot lane turret, maybe put some pressure there, you can actually start to do stuff with it. Even the fact that, like, Void Grubs is such a big boon when it comes to XP, I think it was a mistake not to take them. And now we're in a position where GIANTX, okay, cool, you got next dragon in 2.5 minutes, you can look to throw down Rift Herald mid, create a ton of pressure, get mid terror, force Rogue underneath their own structures, and suddenly then as Rogue, you're going to start face checking into bot side river, completely blind. Which is not a good part to be in.
No, and now Patrik hurts. There's a point where Comp gets more items and gets faster, and it's really hard for Patrik to, you know, stick on top of him even with 2 dashes because Zeri just gets so quick. This is not that point. Collector first item is one of the best feeling first item spikes in the game. I'm not going to tell you it's the mathematically strongest, but Nilah scales so well with crit. It is crazy. Kind of just hard forced by the design team. You will play her as an AD carry. Do not take her anywhere else. You must build AD carry items. And, yeah, fun fact, whenever First Blood happens in this game, it'll be the latest First Blood this split. It won't be the latest First Blood we've ever cast or I've ever cast. That was 28 minutes. Misfits versus Vitality.
Up until LCK last year, I actually cast the game and held the record.
You cast the game and held the record. What was the record?
32 minutes.
Damn.
JDG
that was
versus
28.
FPX.
Oh, God. Is there anything the LPL isn't beating us in? Can we just have this?
Well, the
Can we
LCK
have latest?
took it from us as well, so
no.
They just beat us in everything.
No. We held on to that with pride. That was the worst game I've ever cast in my life.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be worth something, Rob.
No, we both were just miserable for basically half an hour, and then, yeah.
All right. Well, we're not miserable in this game, but it has been 16 minutes of limited action.
This trailer really went downhill.
Think about it this way. Yeah, I was going to say, we started with 90s announcer voice, and I don't feel like we've matched up. Think about it this way. We're just watching 2 simultaneous montages training up so that we can, everyone's just getting geared, you know? Markoon spotting GIANTX, who are clearly keen to fight and not just content to keep getting geared, but don't really have any need or pressure to push any further than they already have. They own the entire bottom side of the map. Markoon getting a lot of value off of his flag, is I think the way that I will say it. There's a lot of vision control coming out of this Jarvan right now.
which is why I personally
you know, you could pick Maokai, but I for one am a flag enjoyer. I feel like it sends a stronger statement.
My mark,
this bush, however briefly, belongs to me.
Maybe that's the thing. Markoon just wants to be Helldivers. He's just like, I'm going to plant my flag.
Bam. Future Earth. This is what we're here for.
I will say, though, it is incredibly satisfying if you get a kill with that flag. Just
it is.
The fade away.
Oh, yeah, the fade away? Yeah, 100%. One of the coolest things you can do.
Holy, is this a fight?
Okay. Everybody hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Get ready. There's a Herald dropped. There's a third Drake. Rogue feel that it's time to get... They have started walking away from the Drake, and the tower's already gone. This is the worst... This is great for GIANTX.
Okay, Peach is going
again.
Oh, he's going to get the knock-up? Can he get the knock-up?
Can he get comp with the Herald assist?
Oh,
okay, into the wall. All right. Markoon. The angle. All right, guys.
Go on.
All right, guys.
You got this.
Go on. Come on. We can do it. Oh, knock up. Knock back. First blood is coming through immediately. There it is, baby. Latest of the split, and it feels good. 18 minutes. Odo grabbing that kill. Herald still in the mid lane. Somehow managed to wander her way over. Finn now unstoppable, but definitely not unkillable. Will be forced to retreat. That's Patrik on the backside. Apotheosis right on the comp. Comp forced flashes to safety. GIANTX, they might not be as worried about the kills, but they are worried about the Drakes.
Get it done.
Oh, he's getting frogged on. It's a dark time, most certainly. Rogue forced to retreat. They lose a kill. They lose a Drake. They lose the mid lane tower.
That was all over the joint from Rogue. Like, no one knew which way they want to try and address things, where they were supposed to be on the map, and I mean, GIANTX, they were just like, cool, we can just play this slow. Rift Tower mid, fantastic. I mean, they didn't even really need the Rift Tower. They'd already got that mid tower, and then they just take the fight after. Like, I don't know. Again, indecisiveness from Rogue coming back to bite them. Like, watch here, right? You've got Finn, who's positioned on the backside, which is why GIANTX tried to commit onto him. Larssen doesn't really have access onto the backline at all. And great engage here from Odo. Like, not even the vision controlling your own jungle to really set this up. Like, sorry, from IgNar, the engage. Comp and Finn aren't really in position to fire this one through. And then watch Jackie's as well, as Comp actually tries to follow up as Finn goes for the re-engage here. There's a great flick back onto Comp, which actually takes him out of the fight, stops him from dashing over the wall as well, and then that sets up for Patrik to go over as well. So Comp's now forced out of the fight, and Rogue forced to back away.
Yep. Decisively in favor of GX. And as slow as the game is, you know that it's still tense for GX fans, every fan of these respective teams. Larssen knocked back, one more dash forward. Charm does connect onto Odoamne, flag and drag through. Finn here on the side. Odo gonna get taken out by the Cataclysm. Patrik now backing away. IgNar on the run, Peach on the run as well. 3-man knock up from Finn. Rogue starting to feel signs of hope as Patrik tries to keep him away from the rest of the team. Shut down now coming through. GIANTX on the retreat. Rogue finally on the board. If they can get a Baron here, it's massive. Jackie's trying to dissuade. Resets coming in. Peach still alive.
I mean, Jackie's has to try and make the play.
Forward. Wall out to safety, just barely. Jackie's manages to put it together, but all of Rogue pull off the Baron, and GX get what they wanted. Yes, they lose a couple members. Yes, it's not a positive exchange, but the Baron not taken from Rogue.
Still, though, decent picks for Rogue. And I mean, they were kind of just more happy to get the opportunity to try and set up for Baron, but Jackie's now not having ults, not having flash, sets him up as a target, and I think we're all looking at 3 minutes when the next Dragon's going to be up, which is when this is all going to kick off. But I kind of get the play from GIANTX here. You see Finn on bot side, you think, okay, we can make the play, but they commit so much for Zoelys, don't end up getting them, and then it's as the TP comes through and Jackie's separated from them because the turret, it just turns into a 3v4, which eventually ends up becoming a 3v5, or because you've got Rogue who have comp on the way as well. So very messy from GIANTX, just in the execution and not waiting for the wave before they try to commit to the dive.
And the big thing there is Comp getting the shutdown that much closer to his second item. Does appear to be, I would guess, IE, but we'll kind of see what direction he wants to go with the BF Sword and the Cloak. Patrik also very close to the Rory Quick Blades. So AD carry someone we're going to have to keep track of in the fights. Importantly though, Comp no flash, Zoelys no flash, Markoon and Finn no flash. Patrik still has his, which which could be a big deal. Larssen also something to keep track of, because really it's going to be about this Drake. We have 2 minutes. Everyone's getting an invite. We're making a fight night poster. Everyone's invited. 23 minutes and 30-something seconds, 40-something seconds. There will be a fist fight around this Drake. If there is not
make a fight night poster, what kind of stats would you use? Because like,
Not
I
ones
tried to
from
do
this
this
game.
in 2020. No,
Not
it was
ones
like
from this
you
game.
could do like their reach, right? Because you know the way you think about boxing, it's like how many
Yeah.
champions they played and stuff. It's like, what would you?
No, I would do their reach. I would do it straight like a boxing poster. People would be very confused why people have such drastically different stats.
Are you just gonna measure how far
Yeah.
the chair is from the desk to be
Just,
like, this is the reach?
This is their reach. This is their keyboard positioning. This is their hotkeys. Because I'm not using DPM. Odo plays enough Rumble already. I don't need to incentivize him playing more Rumble or these Varus lethality enthusiasts.
To be fair, I feel like the Rumble game he did well.
He
I
did.
don't
No,
know if it
I'm
was
just
on.
saying that Rumble players are DPS farmers, and we all know it.
Yeah.
They sit there and they just ult 4 people, and they're like, guys, top DPM. It's like you did nothing for 50% of this game.
Yeah, but I'm a
Minimum.
support, so I kind of like the KP/KDA farming where I throw down my Thresh Lantern, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I did it.
You can get
I
that.
did a
If they're
shield.
nerfing your role and just refusing to let you ever leave bot lane again, you're allowed to KP farm. That's okay. I think that's your consolation prize. You can always tell yourself you helped as a support. You know?
Even when you die, it's like, that was for the good of the
Rakan,
team.
Flash, W, heal. I helped.
Yeah.
My ally, full health. One is 1v1 on his own. Me, got an assist. That's all that matters. I was there. I contributed.
My favorite is when you're like, your top laner's TP into his top lane, and you're like, his enemy laner's a little bit low. I'm just going to throw him a shield.
Yeah.
Just in case he
Just in
gets the
case.
solo kill off the back of
Give me a
this.
little bit. Your Karthus is ulting. You just throw a shield on him. I'm helping. I swear. And all of fight night. Forgot. 20 seconds ahead of schedule. Everyone's showing up. In the red corner, Rogue sitting at 1 and 5. Have not found an angle into the fights yet this game, but maybe here they can turn it around. Their opponent in the blue trunks, GIANTX, looking for the wall angle. Finn trying to forge. He doesn't have any time to do that, or does he? He's calling out the forge. God, now looking to turn it back. 2-man knockup. So at least isolated off to the side. Jackie's trying to lay down a little bit of damage, but they might have already found a primary target. Knockup is there. Apotheosis hitting onto 3, with the redemption coming in, offering some extra healing. Comes to living, but Patrik staying alive longer. Finn slowly but surely getting cut down, and Rogue losing the fight. They cannot find an angle in. Round 2, round 3, I don't know, but the bell is ringing and the Dragon's gonna die. GX coming out on top.
The direction on the fight for Rogue there was so disjointed. Like, you want Comp and Zoelys to be coming in from the same angle. You want to be able to fight front to back. That is not what we got at all. Like, Zoelys is sitting up over here, but as we start to move into the fight, you get to see Comp actually starts to run around here as this wall starts to come through to reposition. Same when it comes towards Larssen. So in this fight then, you end up in this weird position where you don't actually have the buffs that Comp needs to actually be able to get into a fight. Jackie's is able to solo off Zoelys, and then Zoelys is committing nothing to this fight, whereas Comp gets completely jumped on by that GIANTX combo we were talking about with the Nilah and also with the Vi, and then they don't have the damage left to try and carry the fight. It was really bizarre angle of attack here for Rogue.
I mean, you can see last on the side of GX, they feel comfortable because they set up the Drake. They had better vision control. Wave was reset on mid. And then Rogue walked into them. Like, they had better information across the entire fight. And naturally, off of the better information, are able to get a better position. Very split fight. The game is not over, as you can see, but Mountain is going to be a really tough thing to deal with. Ahri is not a champion whose burst damage feels relevant at every stage of the game. It's mostly early mid, a little bit into the late game, especially with the def cap. But now that everyone's tanky because of Mountain Soul, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, it helps Patrik out a nice chunk as well, because he's just able to stick around that bit longer. Finn?
Unstoppable should be okay. Nice Weaver's wall to split off multiple members of the team, but a lot of resources now committed onto Finn. Knockback is where coming in from the cast. The Ornn slowly but surely will fall. Patrik now on a killing spree. Clean pick from the side of GX.
Finn kind of sent to the sin bin there. That was not the way that you want to try and walk into that. And GIANTX pick him off nice and hurt. Larssen?
Nice charm. Good upfront damage. The entire team waiting, though. The Unraveled Earth just creating so much space. Rogue don't have a good angle. Markoon now backstepping. Comp just going to die here. Patrik on a rampage. This is a slaughter.
This was very, very slow from the get-go, but Rogue just have not been on the same page the entire time. And now GIANTX, they're going to turn over towards the big purple worm. You already have the vision control that you need. You can even go for a pick if Rogue try and contest. You can see the 3 members, they're not even going to bother. You're just going to go and farm it out elsewhere because they already know GIANTX is going to kick their ass to the curb.
And while we talk about the simplicity of team fighting, Rogue have just not put themselves in a position to do it. You still need first vision setup, and GX have maintained their diligence in setting up objectives. They're punishing Rogue for coming in at off angles or poor angles, for stepping into parts of the jungle they're absolutely not allowed to. So, you know, GIANTX had sloppy games last week and week 1, but this game thus far has been pretty clean overall.
But it's also like, even the lane assignments for Rogue have been weird. Like the fact that Finn was clearing top instead of Larssen meant that Finn like kind of had to come in from a weird angle of attack to get into a position there. Whereas if you have Larssen, you can actually have this 4-man unit as Rogue contest vision, contest in towards the jungle, because Finn just tanks up into the CC that comes his direction. It's his job, but yeah, it's just been very, very bizarre. Even the like hard steal for Finn, like I can kind of understand it in the 1v1, but it means that you're so far behind when you could just easily move in towards like not Spear Visage, but like a Force of Nature, a Kaenic Rooker, and this kind of things, because you're up against double AP and your solo laners, and you've got a lethality build, at least for the moment, for Patrik. Like, there's a lot of weird decisions on Rogue's side here.
Yeah, and you have to understand right now with Patrick's build, Finn doesn't have armor.
Yeah.
Nilah gets, I think, like 4 or 5% armor pen for every crit cloak she buys, on top of, you know, what you're getting from Lord Dominic's, on top of the increased health bonus. Nilah has probably 50% armor pen right now at this point in the game. It's very powerful. The reason this champ can play as a melee champion in late game is because her kit is so disgustingly synergistic. And Finn is going to be feeling that in the fights to come. If he is left isolated with this Nilah, he's not going to be able to do anything. GX now pushing in. I think Rogue are aware, but I don't know what the window of opportunity is. It's certainly, you cannot let these inhibitors go down. A TP is coming in, but just a cover, potentially. Markoon trying to kick the fight up. Knockaback is there. Good initial damage onto Jackies, but he has the stopwatch. Patrik now ready to fall, now ready to go in. Going to the backline, immediate apotheosis, trying to take down the rest of the team. Slowly but surely, the Nia starts to tear through. There is the ulti finally. Double for Patrik. Larssen completely isolated from the fight. And it is not with a bang, but with a whimper. The Rogue's hope will die in the Spring Split. This is a tragic game, beautifully played by GIANTX, a quadra for Patrik, and they'll be happy to have the win, but this was no contest.
Rogue just never showed up. GIANTX, slow, methodical, they find the picks, they find the team fights, and they find the Nexus. There's just no contest at all from Rogue.
And again, credit to GIANTX, they got the win, they played better, they executed better. So they can breathe a sigh of relief today, but they know every single game that lies in front of them is crucial. Vitality, as well as Team Heretics, staring them down. Two teams that have basically already locked playoffs. A tough road for them. With that win, getting them one step closer, tying them up with the other teams near the bottom of the standing until they play their games later today. Mad Lions, Koi, as well as Karmine Corp.
Yeah, really hoping that either Mad Lions Koi or Karmine Corp can't pick up a win over the rest of this weekend. Maybe they can just jump ahead of them. Yeah. Or they can force a tiebreaker with them. But player of the game, vote now at LEC on X. Peach, Jackies, or Patrik. Honestly, I mean, solid game from GIANTX, pretty much all around. Like, not much else to say.
Take your pick. We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, to interview with Jackies and Trick after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Red Bull gives you wings.